SCP-610 is called the Flesh That Hates. It's a zombie plague. Now, we've reacted to zombie kind of stories before from SCP. SCP-001 was actually some sort of zombie apocalypse. It was about the end of the world. It was a tale where the sun converted people to these mindless things that would kind of get into a gooey collective, and oh man, it was a crazy video, but it was a great story, and this one's probably going to be too. It's by SCP Explained. Make sure to head on over to their channel and subscribe, guys. Hit the notification bell, and if you like reaction videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel as well. Let's get into this SCP.
In a remote part of Russia, a mysterious disease
Like
outbreak
Siberia?
was tearing through a tiny farming village with terrifying side effects.
Okay.
There was no cure, no clue to where it came from, and worst of all, the disease's terrifying impact didn't end with death. No.
Wow.
It was after those carrying the disease
COVID
died
was bad.
that the real horrors started.
Okay.
After
what
an
happened?
agonizing fever that leaves the victims writhing in pain, they quickly succumb to
Fever
the disease,
sucks, man.
only to rise from their graves
Hurts.
to wreak havoc on the living.
Now
The
that's
virus continues to
that's
spread
straight out of
until
Day
the
to Day.
corpses outnumber those trying to hide from them, as the world spirals into almost certain ruin.
Wow.
It sounds like the plot of a zombie movie.
Yeah.
But for the SCP Foundation, this is anything but fiction.
Okay.
And the terror that unfolded in that little Siberian town is the first recorded encounter with SCP-610,
that
also
hates.
known as the Flesh That Hates.
What's it hate?
First, livestock began to vanish from farms.
Okay.
Theft or wild animals were suspected, but no suspects could be found,
All
and no
right.
mutilated remains turned up. The animals weren't being stolen, and they weren't being eaten, so
They weren't
what
being
happened to them? With no more animals left to lose, the farmers themselves then began to disappear. But the
Wow.
authorities refused to take the missing persons cases seriously. The missing farmers' families would contact the police, make a report, and then the whole thing was forgotten.
How could you just
It was written off
refuse
just as
to
another unsolved
investigate?
disappearance, which wasn't uncommon in the wild and unforgiving region.
Okay.
Then, the police themselves began to disappear.
Aha.
The families of the missing farmers would sometimes report strange sounds from the surrounding woods,
Okay.
describing moans and inhuman screeches of pain.
Oh,
One
my
young boy
God.
reported seeing a cow with what he described as tentacles lurking around the edge of the trees.
The zombies are animals
Regional
too?
police were dispatched to
Or
the
vice versa?
location and ordered to investigate and report
Can
back
you
on their
imagine a
findings
cow
within
with
24 hours. But the units
Oh,
sent
the
to the
donut
area
was
didn't
too
report
much right
back
there.
and were never heard from again.
Sad. So the
Upon
cops
learning of the reports, the Russian government
get-
grew
they
increasingly
would get eaten.
concerned, fearing domestic insurgency
Turned
or
into-
foreign espionage of some kind could be at play.
Okay.
They sent a small team of special agents to the area, and one by one,
They thought it was
those
like
agents
foul play
disappeared,
from other countries.
just like the others before them.
just like the
It
cops and
seemed
the
no one
farmers.
who went into the village after the disappearances started ever came out again.
People that
They
would
had all
investigate would
simply
get
vanished.
vanished.
Desperate for answers,
Would
the
get
Russian
vanished.
government
Would
contacted
vanish.
the only people in the world who could help.
the
The
SCP
SCP
Foundation.
Foundation. What the Foundation found over the course of their investigation would shock and unnerve them, going beyond anything they had previously discovered.
Okay.
Before the investigation officially
lot of
began,
amnestics,
the
y'all.
affected area was sealed off by the Russian government,
Right.
not knowing if it would be safe to send researchers into the containment perimeter. The Foundation set up
Wow.
a small camera-mounted unit, nicknamed Herbie,
Hey,
to capture
Herbie the
footage
Rover.
of whatever remained of the village.
Like on the moon.
The images captured by Herbie revealed what exactly had become of the people in this doomed village, and the
All right.
true nightmarish nature of SCP-610.
So they started to see.
SCP-610 is a Keter Class entity, meaning it's an anomaly that's exceedingly difficult to contain
That's right.
consistently or reliably, with containment procedures often being extensive and complex. 610 is a highly contagious skin disease that initially manifests like an ordinary allergic reaction, with symptoms including increased sensitivity, itching, and a rash.
Like
But
cabin
within
fever.
just 3 hours of those initial symptoms appearing, the rash starts to turn into masses of scar tissue on the
3
chest and
hours.
arms. These masses spread
Holy
over the
cow.
legs and back of the victim and completely consume them in thick, rubbery flesh within 5 hours. Once they're covered, the victim will cease all vital functions.
For sure.
Unfortunately for them, and doubly so for those around them, they do not stay dead. About 3 minutes
Ugh.
after expiring, the victim's vitals will restart at a heightened rate, and the masses of flesh encasing their body will begin to move and multiply, mutating them into a form beyond anything resembling the human they once were.
Just something
The
nasty.
specific type of mutation varies from case to case,
Oh my
but has
God.
included the head becoming massive and bulbous, the growth of extra limbs, And in especially gruesome cases, the victim's body splitting apart to allow extra tendrils of flesh to sprout from the open wound.
God.
Occasionally,
Just
an infected
mutate.
person will stop moving and become rooted to the ground in a set location. Once it is settled, their flesh will spread itself across the ground, encasing all nearby objects in flaps of scar tissue.
Wow.
The infected that maintain their mobility are highly aggressive, even violent, and will attempt to infect any living thing that comes into
That's
their
the
line
worst
of
kind of
sight.
zombie,
The
bruh.
disease does not only infect humans, and can take over any living organism within a matter of hours.
That's terrible,
Due to the
too.
highly contagious and dangerous nature of the disease,
Like that cow
safe
with the
observation of
tentacles earlier
infected
we saw.
specimens and areas is only possible with drones and mounted cameras.
Right. Because
This
it's not
brings
fleshy.
us back to Herbie, the first such mounted camera to record footage of the infected area. Herbie was deployed to an infection site, also known as Site A, without any damage. It remained at the outside perimeter of the village for 2 hours, observing several infected humans and fire damage to many of the homes, before following an infected into an intact house. Herbie's camera feed captured the infected person entering the house and sitting down at the table inside. There were several other infected humans in the house, and one unidentified infected creature that remained immobile under the table.
So they were kind of
After
just
viciously
living?
assaulting one of the other infected humans, the infected returned to the table and began to lay out plates on top of it.
Yeah!
Pieces of its flesh began to wriggle and tear away from its body before settling onto each plate. Once the plates were filled, the infected sitting at the table began to grab at the flesh and crush it into their mouths.
How
In
weird.
a perverse imitation of a normal mealtime gathering.
Yeah,
After
that's
capturing the
gross,
stomach-churning
man.
display, Herbie left the house and continued to explore the village. Recorded footage of a large stack of bodies that seemed to be made up of both Russian military and civilians, with an infected sitting on top.
Wow.
As Herbie maneuvered towards the remains of the town hall, an infected grabbed the rover off the ground. Herbie's camera was able to capture the face of the infected that grabbed the rover. The face was that of a young girl, around 10 years old, strangely intact atop a large, distorted body.
Oh my.
The final moments of Herbie's camera feed captured the infected girl's face bursting open, revealing tendrils of flesh that pulled Herbie into the gaping mouth.
God, it ate the
Then,
robot too.
The feed cut to black.
It just hates
Herbie
everything.
was regarded as lost, but the video feed briefly resumed 5 hours later, showing the camera covered with an unidentified slime.
So how do you
After
contain
this,
that?
the video feed was cut for good, and Herbie abandoned in Site A. The
poor
Foundation has sent
Herbie.
several manned expeditions into Site A, where many expedition forces have fallen victim to the infected. Several operatives were also lost in an earthquake that revealed a network of underground tunnels. A manned expedition into these tunnels was attempted, and the video feed that was captured by the researchers on the expedition was deeply disturbing. There were images of an abandoned church filled with infected, and a mass of uninfected or partially infected human captives.
Oh, wow.
The final moments of the video feed from this expedition captured several operatives being murdered by an infected human wielding a farming scythe,
So they're
indicating that the
intelligent?
infected are capable of using simple weaponry in addition to brute force.
Oh my
The use of this
gosh.
weapon, paired with the
They're
presence
organized.
of captives in the underground tunnels, paints a terrifying picture of the kind of organization the infected are capable of. No more manned expeditions have been attempted, or if they have been highly classified. Ordinarily, once a new SCP is discovered, it is placed in containment at the Foundation, with special procedures in place so that it can be studied or even neutralized in the rare occasions where it's deemed necessary.
But in
when
this
it comes
case?
to SCP-610, though, containment might just be impossible.
Might
It
just
simply
have to
covers
kill it.
too much area and is too dangerous to expose to human researchers.
So-
Instead, all infected areas have been isolated with the permission of the Russian government. There is an official perimeter established around these areas, and any civilians that approach them are told to leave under the pretense of ongoing military operations.
Like Area 51,
For once,
but in
a
Russia.
top-secret military project is the more innocent answer.
Maybe that's what
Armed
Area
guards are
51
placed
is.
at the perimeter of every infected area, and any living thing with symptoms of SCP-610 spotted near the
Gunned
perimeter
down.
is to be immobilized, killed,
And
and
incinerated.
burned from as far away as possible.
Wow,
Any living thing that comes in contact with SCP-610, whether a soldier, a scientist, or a civilian, is immediately terminated and their remains destroyed. If someone comes within 3 meters of an infected organism, they will be quarantined and remotely examined to determine if they have been infected. While the
Any
spread of
signs?
SCP-610
It's only 3
can
hours,
be
remember.
airborne, it has been determined to be far less contagious when spread through air particles as opposed to physical contact. The infection sites remain active to this day.
But it is airborne.
Like
That's
modern-day leper colonies. Though they are isolated from the general population.
Like lepers.
And the military is doing everything in their power to contain the infected. SCP-610 is still very much alive. It is rare for an entity to exist that the Foundation cannot truly contain, but can only try to guard against. And that makes this infection all the more terrifying.
Nowadays.
Who knows how much it has mutated over the years, growing, spreading, hungry for new hosts. There is still so much that the Foundation does not know about the flesh that hates, such as how it works, what it can do, or even where it came from, since the origin of the first infection is still, at this point, entirely unknown. It has shown itself to be capable of learning, planning, and protecting itself. So who is to say that it couldn't figure out a way to escape from its isolated area? It is so highly contagious and spreads so quickly that just one tiny infected rabbit and one inattentive soldier would be enough for SCP-610 to reach the general population. If it did, its violent, destructive nature and hatred for all life would mean that everything, not just the people, but animals, plants, and the world itself,
that's why they call it the flesh that hates.
And no one is ready for this kind of infection. A disease that turns the human body against itself. Turns our skin into a weapon and
we can't even handle COVID.
Stripping away identity, humanity, and everything that isn't made of the same hateful flesh. So let's hope that the perimeter holds. And the next time you feel a little itchy, try not to think about what might happen next.
No. No. I think I'm already paranoid when it comes to getting sick. Looking up on WebMD what it could be, my symptoms and stuff like that. I think we're all a little bit of hypochondriacs nowadays with everything that's going on. I hope y'all enjoyed this one. This one was awesome, man. SCP Explained, guys. Make sure to subscribe to him, as well as a couple videos that I reacted to about other SCPs. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off, and we'll see you next time.